Welcome back, everyone. You know how this all works, but if you don't, before we continue the story, if you are new to this series, I highly suggest that you pause this video and go watch the previous episodes of this series, since it's no fun to jump straight into a series without knowing what's going on. The link to the series playlist will be down in the description of this video. Now, with all that said, let's begin. Chapter 15: The Great Safari. Due to their late arrival at Pastoria City, Violet was unable to challenge the gym. Despite her frustration, she is okay with it since this gives her time to rest and prepare for the tough battle. She writes down notes and battle ideas while eating a quick meal the group got at the Pokémon Center. She listens to Dante and Lucius go on and on about his Mewtwo, and she is getting annoyed. Knowing what she knows, her level of trust for Lucius is near non-existent, and she hates how Dante is swooning over him. "So, I actually have an idea," Lucius says with a suave voice. Violet looks up from her meal and notebook. "And that is? How about before you challenge the gym, we head to the Great Marsh Safari Zone, and you and Dante can catch some Pokemon? It'll be my treat. Think of it as a thank you for letting me join you both." Violet's brows raise, but she hides the small thrill that is deep inside. She turns to Dante, who is troubled by the idea considering his distaste for Safari Zones. "I think that would be fun, though I know Dante doesn't really care for catching Pokemon," Violet says, returning to her notes and meal. "Really, Dante?" Lucius asks. Dante sighs and looks out the nearby window. "Back home, I spend my time in the Safari Reserve sketching paintings of Pokemon. I just don't like safaris. Pay money to catch Pokemon? It's not right." Lucius nods understandingly. "I do see the way you see. Perhaps you can go tomorrow and draw some Pokemon instead," he suggests. Dante smiles despite not even wanting to set foot in the Great Marsh, and agrees to go along with Lucius's idea. Once their meals are finished, they decide to call it a night considering how long their day had been. Lucius leaves first, and Dante and Violet head to their rooms a few minutes later. Before Dante enters, Violet grabs his arm and turns him to face her. "What's up, Vi?" Dante says, looking down at her. Turmoil boils down deep within Violet as she tries to figure out if it would be wise to tell Dante everything. "Just be careful, okay?" she says, keeping her secret. The confusion on his face is evident when he is about to press further. Violet interrupts him with a swift goodnight and enters her own room. Dante looks at her door and then back to his. "Okay, then, that was weird." At dawn, Dante wakes and goes through his morning routine. Shower, feed his Pokemon, and dress for the day. He is out of his room before 7:30 and heads to the lobby of the Pokémon Center. He is surprised to see Lucius already sitting there swiping through a tablet. "Ah, good morning, Dante. Sleep well?" Lucius says, putting his tablet back into his suit. "Morning. I slept as well as I could, I guess," he says with a touch of grogginess. Violet joins them shortly after, and they head out to the Great Marsh. Lucius pays their way into the safari, and they are given a sack filled with 30 safari balls and bait. Violet dashes out, almost skipping, looking for Pokemon to catch. Dante, however, inhales the air and lets the smells of the marsh fill his lungs. He heads over to a fallen tree on the edge of the mud. He sits down and tosses the safari bag aside and pulls out a sketchbook from his satchel. Dante watches as Whoopers splash in the mud and murky water. He smiles at the cuteness and begins to draw. An idea comes to him, and he reaches into the safari sack and throws some of the bait out for the Pokemon. More Pokemon come to the bait, and soon the scene Dante is drawing comes to life. The Whooper come over and pick at the bait, as well as some Quagsire. After they eat, the Whooper begins to sing. More Pokemon are drawn to the area, and Dante smiles being surrounded by such happy Pokemon. He throws out more bait to feed the crowd. A little Skorupi joins the score of Whooper and Quagsire and begins to pick at the bait. "Hey there, little guy. Enjoying the food?" Dante asks, leaning over to get a closer look at the Skorupi. The little bug Pokemon looks over at him and squeals with happy eyes and bites into more food. The Quagsire and Whooper begin to leave after they had their fill, and soon only Skorupi remains. And it still is eating. Dante pulls out another handful of bait. The Skorupi sees this and crawls over to Dante and eats it right out of his hand. Once the bait is gone, it crawls onto Dante and rests on his shoulder. "Cute," Dante says, returning to his drawing. The Skorupi looks down at the drawing and sees that it's in the picture as well. It squeals again and points at it with its tail. "Yeah, that's you. Do you like it?" Skorupi nods with joy in its eyes. Dante pulls out another handful of bait and gives it to Skorupi. It eats it up even faster, and that worries Dante. You don't get much to eat, do you? Skorupi stops and shakes his head and then returns to the bait. Dante feels for the little Pokemon. He has seen things like this before in Fuchsia. The runts of the safari eat less than the larger ones. Back in the safari reserve, they take special care of the smaller Pokemon. But in actual safari zones, it's survival of the fittest. He knows it's possible for this Pokemon to be dead within the year if life for it continues like this. Dante's heart breaks knowing the odds are dim for this little Skorupi. He reaches over and pulls the safari sack closer to him. Hey, Skorupi, would you like to come with me to be my Pokemon? Dante asks. Skorupi looks over at him with joy and crawls over to his other shoulder and then to the top of his head and squeals. Dante laughs and pulls out one of the camouflage Pokeballs and holds it up above his head. Skorupi swings its tail and hits the ball, causing it to trigger, and it energizes it and pulls it inside. It rocks in Dante's hand and locks closed. So much for not catching anything, Violet says from the distance, a touch of teasing in her voice. Dante smiles and looks at the ball before placing it on his belt. Did you catch anything? He asks. Violet nods and takes a safari ball off her belt and brings out a Tropius. Wow, that is one catch, Violet, Dante says, smiling up at the grass and flying type Pokemon. The safari ball on Dante's belt opens on its own and Skorupi jumps out and crawls up Dante. It squeals, looking up at the Tropius. The massive Pokemon leans down and looks at the bug type. It lets out a roar and smiles as if they knew each other. But it is much more than that. They know they are escaping the Safari Zone and will live better lives now. Once everyone is back in their ball, Dante and Violet leave the legendary Great Marsh and head to the center of town to join Lucius at a small coffee shop. He noticed that both of them are now sporting safari balls and he smiles. I see both of you had a good hunt. What did you both catch? Lucius asks, smiling. Again, like before, Skorupi comes out on his own and climbs up onto Dante. I got him, Dante says, laughing. Very good. I'm glad you actually made a friend in there. Lucius turns to Violet. And what did you catch? He's too big to come out here, but I caught a Tropius, she says proudly. I'm sure that will come in handy for this gym. I hope so, she says, patting the ball on her belt. Lucius pays the bill and heads over to the gym on the other side of town. Just before entering, Violet decides to head to the Pokemon Center instead to give her team a refresh. Dante and Lucius wait outside knowing they will be here for at least a half hour. Dante decides to introduce the rest of his team to his newest member. Skorupi is already on his shoulder and he brings out Grotle, Hippopotas, and Kabuto. They all greet the little bug with warmness and accepts him into their little family. He hops off Dante and crawls on top of Grotle. Your Kabuto seems different, Lucius says, moving over to examine it. It's been a good Pokemon and friend. Helps me a lot. Its ancient power is really powerful, Dante says, smiling down at it. Ancient power? Lucius looks closer at the fossil Pokemon. Normally it's Kabutops that learns that. I think your Kabuto is close to evolving. Really? Dante says, smiling. I guess you and I need to train some more. Kabuto screeches, agreeing with Dante. What if I told you I could help make Kabuto evolve right away? Lucius says with a cryptic air. How? My Mewtwo can suppress Kabuto with its psychic powers, make it work harder, and in turn, forcing it to evolve. Is that right? Will it hurt Kabuto? Dante questions. It's no different than using an experience share module. It's painless, but it will make Kabuto push its power to the max. Dante looks down at Kabuto and back at Lucius. He nods and returns his other Pokemon to their balls. Lucius releases his shiny Mewtwo and it stands next to its trainer. Mewtwo, I want you to suppress that Kabuto's power for me. Mewtwo glows with energy and Kabuto begins to emit the same aura. Good. Now tell it to attack Mewtwo. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Dante nods. Okay, Kabuto, let's try an Aqua Jet. Kabuto struggles to move, but the water surrounds it and it flies the Mewtwo and impacts. It bounces off and lands on its back. It flips itself over and waits for the next order. Alright, let's go again. Aqua Jet! Again, Kabuto attacks with its water move, though moving more stronger this time. Good. Keep it up, Dante. It has to be close. Ancient power, Kabuto. Kabuto glows with the ancient aura and the boulders form in the air above. As the aura from the attack mixes with the aura given off from Mewtwo, a change happens and Kabuto begins to glow with the evolutionary light. It's working! Dante yells out. Once the boulders are fully formed, the evolution finishes and Kabutops stands with its scythe claws stabbed into the ground. The ancient power fails and the boulders crash into the ground around it. It looks up and over at Dante. Kabutops stands upright and pulls its blades from the ground. It looks around confused and falls to a knee. Dante runs over to his Pokémon and helps it up. It looks at him and nods and thanks. Lucius and Mewtwo walk over to Dante and his Pokémon. Amazing. Seeing an evolution this close, and with such an ancient Pokémon? Thanks, both of you. You brought out Kabuto's true power, Dante says, looking at his newly evolved Pokémon. Kabutops, however, only has its eyes trained on Mewtwo. It has the look of distrust and hate in its eyes, but no one notices. The rage that was there when it was a Kabuto has returned, but now it has a target to focus it on. Before it can act out its rage, Dante returns it to the Pokeball. Violet exits the Pokemon Center just as Dante recalls his Kabutops, and she looks at the scene with shock in her. How did you evolve Kabuto? She asks, reaching the two. Lucius and his Mewtwo helped with that. Mewtwo suppressed its power to make it stronger, Dante says, proud of his choice. Violet processes all that in silence, looking at Lucius and Mewtwo, further losing trust in this man. Well, I'm happy your Pokemon evolved, but I do think you could have done it naturally, Violet says, hiding her true anger over the unnatural evolution. Well, if you two are done playing God, how about we head over to the gym? Lucius returns Mewtwo. That sounds like a grand idea. I can't wait to see you perform again. Perform? I'm not a show ponytail, Lucius, Violet says with sharpness. I apologize. I did not mean it like that. What you do would draw thousands, Violet. It is a performance in its own way. It's fine, she says, dismissing it. Let's go watch me perform. And with that mocking response, Violet leads the way to the other side of the city to take on the legend of Pastoria City. And that is the end of Chapter 15. We are actually now halfway through the story. Please leave feedback and your thoughts in the comments below. It helps me grow and change the story so it doesn't turn into something you don't want to listen to. With a new member added to the lineup, Dante is starting to come into the world of being a Pokemon trainer. But should he have let Lucius do what he did to evolve his Kabuto? Let me know your thoughts, and all feedback, negative and positive, is welcomed. If you enjoyed this video, please share this series around so others can enjoy it as well, and leave a like so I know you enjoyed it. I truly appreciate the likes, and it helps me grow as a channel. Follow me on Twitter for updates on anything and everything Pokemon, as well as know when all my videos go live. The link is down in my description of all my videos. And as always, has been Black Phoenix. Thanks for watching, everyone.